Well, welcome to another episode of Christ and Culture. My name is Pastor Jeff Short, and today we are continuing with a review of the movie Unplanned that has been out at the theaters for now, I think, 2 or 3 weeks. And we were just going over, and I went over last episode, a continuing movie review of this fantastic pro-life tool. This will really help in our trying to persuade people in our country that abortion must stop. It's the killing of unborn children. We've reached a place in our country where we have to begin to present the evidence. We have to present the arguments against this terrible evil because people are simply assuming that this is a, quote, women's health issue. It's not related to women's health. It's not a women's health issue. This is a human life issue. This is a issue of life and death. Women's health, if it's just a physical operation, a procedure, then the ratings board at the motion picture industry would not give it an R rating for violence. You don't give a movie that shows an operation for a heart transplant or a kidney transplant or some kind of a physical surgery to remove a cancer or whatever. You don't give a movie that shows an operation of that sort an R rating for violence because there is nothing violent taking place. There may be a lot of blood. There may be some unpleasant scenes in a movie that shows someone on the operating table, but it's not given an R for violent content. You only give a movie violent content rating if it is seen as a movie of violence against a human being. And this movie was given an R rating not because it's not a family-friendly movie, not because it has profanity, not because it has sexual content, not because of anything other than the fact that an ultrasound video picture was taken, depicted, not even actual, but depicted a surgical abortion. And it was given an R rating for violent content because of that. That just shows that even the people who are pro-choice, pro-abortion, are in favor of Planned Parenthood. They know that there's violence taking place. They know that this is a violent act against a human being, a defenseless human being. And even though they won't come out and admit it directly, indirectly, by rating this movie R for violent content, they are proving the pro-life argument in the point of their rating. Now, some of the things that the movie we've already talked about, the hypocrisy of Planned Parenthood, the deceptive techniques they use to convince women to go ahead with abortions. One of the scenes that I haven't talked about before in the other review was that there was a really heart-wrenching scene where a family, a black family, it looked like a middle-aged woman and some of younger adult women were pleading with it looked like some of the younger women pleading were sisters. They were pleading with a young black woman who was going into the abortion clinic that Abby Johnson directed. And they were saying, don't kill your baby. We'll take care of it. We're begging you, don't go on. Don't go through with this. There are alternatives, and the mother of this woman was also pleading with her. And the young woman drove into the abortion clinic, went in the door, and had her abortion. And her family didn't want her to have it and were pleading with her. That was a really dramatic scene, and I think a lot of people miss that. Here it shows a human experience where you have people in the young girl's family who don't want her to have an abortion. And the message of Planned Parenthood is that the only person who can decide to have an abortion or not to have an abortion is the person who's pregnant, a young woman. and basically no one else has a voice in that. And that's the message of Planned Parenthood. They've always given that message, and that's the radical left, the Democratic Party, the progressives, so-called. That's their message to the world. The only person who should be able to choose, the only person who should even have input, is the woman herself. And that is totally false. There are a number of people involved in that baby's life, especially, for example, the father. There is a father somewhere, and that father deserves to have a voice in this decision. But Planned Parenthood and the Democrats and the radical left, they say no. The only person this concerns is the woman herself, and maybe her doctor. Her doctor can talk to her and appeal to her like, yes, you should have this abortion or whatever. So that was a heart-wrenching scene when the family tried to persuade, the mother tried to persuade the young girl to not go through with it, but she went ahead and had the abortion. One of the other really hypocritical scenes in the movie, it shows the hypocrisy of the abortion mentality. This specific clinic, Abby Johnson's clinic, had on that day performed some 38 surgical abortions. 38 surgical abortions. 38 babies were killed in that clinic that day. Very busy day. At the end of the day, the staff, the workers at this clinic, and they're mostly all women, almost 99% of the women, workers at an abortion clinic are women. Now, the only men who are working there usually are the ones who come in who are doctors who actually do the abortions. So this clinic brings in this hired gun, this hitman, if you will, to kill the baby, but almost all the other people working on staff are women. It just shows you the deception that Planned Parenthood perpetuates, and that's that this is all about women's causes, women's health, women's reproductive rights. This is a women's issue, so all these women are trying to help other women kill their babies. So they hire the hitmen to come in, usually men, who actually do the killing, but the women are all there facilitating that, and they're thinking they're doing women a favor. They're thinking that they're helping the women's cause. This is the feminist lie. The feminist lie is that women need to rally around women and help them kill babies, and that's going to make women have better lives, and it's going to help the standard of living for women, when in reality it's ruining women's lives. So you have the deceiver, the devil himself, Satan, just like in the Garden of Eden, deceived Eve. The serpent gave lies and deceptions to Eve, and she believed it. And her husband, Adam, was passively listening and passively allowing all of this to take place. The same thing happens today with abortion. You have the deceiver, the devil himself, through the serpent, deceiving women with Planned Parenthood, telling women, "Oh, you need this abortion. This is important. This is perfectly okay. It's your life. You need to make your choice." And the women are in there involved, helping other women kill their babies, and then the men in their lives are passively sitting aside, letting this all happen. Now, that was another disturbing part of the movie for me, was the passive role of the men in the movie. And unfortunately, this is a reality in our society today. It's not biblical. It's not Christian. It even goes against nature, and that is, in the modern world, according to the feminist ideology, which almost everyone has bought into, men are supposed to sit back passively and allow babies to be killed. They're to sit back passively and let women kill babies, even their own baby. The boyfriends or the husbands of these women coming to the abortion clinic, their role, as taught by Planned Parenthood and the radicals in the Democratic Party and the so-called progressives, their role of men is to sit back and encourage the women to do whatever they want. And in this case, encourage the women to go ahead and abort their babies, which is totally contrary to nature, but most important, it's totally contrary to the Word of God, where it says in the marriage relationship that the male is supposed to take the leadership in the home, and he's not supposed to allow injustices, and he's not supposed to allow his unborn baby to be aborted. He's not supposed to permit his wife to hire a hitman to kill their child. He's supposed to be active. He's supposed to be taking the lead instead of this passive role. Now, I know when I talked to Mel McGinnis in the Skype video conference that we had, unfortunately that will not air because of the production problems that we had in that Skype video conference, very complicated problems. So what he had noted was that he felt that Abby Johnson's husband, who was pro-life at the time, and is still pro-life, of course, he felt that it took a lot of strength on the part of her husband to still love her and not leave her, even though she was now working for Planned Parenthood, for an abortion clinic. And he felt that, wow, he stuck with her. He didn't bail on her, didn't divorce her, didn't abandon her because she wouldn't give up her abortion business or job, even though he had asked her many times and tried to persuade her that abortion is wrong. He still loved her and stuck with her in her gruesome business of killing babies. And eventually she came around, and eventually he won her over with the pro-life cause. And Abby became pro-life. But when I saw not only the husband, but more like the father, Abby Johnson's father, the parents of Abby Johnson were pro-life and had actually raised her to be pro-life. And Abby had been deceived when she was a college student, young and naive, by Planned Parenthood, actually, who had come to visit the campus, into thinking that her activism in Planned Parenthood was helping women, and that her counseling in respect to like birth control would actually reduce the number of abortions. Well, that was a lie, because what happened was that a lot of the emphasis from birth control in Planned Parenthood no longer was that way. It was now basically emphasizing abortion. So you have this birth control counseling by Planned Parenthood, and then with the full knowledge that these birth control methods are not going to work 100% of the time, or even a lot of the time, and so they're going to have to come in to have abortions. And then Planned Parenthood is there. They've already got a relationship, a business relationship, and a contact with these young women, so they just come right in and they pay for their abortion. Planned Parenthood makes money, and that's how their corporate business plan was structured. But Abby didn't know that when she was recruited by Planned Parenthood, but later on, and it shows in the movie, Planned Parenthood is a cutthroat, ruthless business, and they're after money, and they will get money, blood money, through abortion, and they will even try to increase the number of abortions performed so that they can make more money and so forth. So, but what I was bothered by was the passive reaction or passive posture of the men in the movie, because even Abby Johnson's father didn't seem to be very forceful in his presentation to Abby that, hey, this is a bad thing. Working at an abortion clinic where you kill babies day in and day out, that doesn't help women. that hurts women. That's against God's law. That's against the laws of nature. You know, a lot of people today want to say, well, that's just religious dogma. We can't use that in the argument. Well, look back at the Declaration of Independence. Look back in the early documents of our country. Look back at the Founding Fathers. They seem to use the natural rights argument. For example, Jefferson says, we hold these rights to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. We hold these truths to be self-evident. So you have these self-evident natural laws that you can appeal to. And it's a natural law that a mother would not kill her offspring. It's a natural law that a woman would not take the most vulnerable infant, not even outside of her womb, but inside of her womb, and kill it. That is a violation of natural law. And so I didn't hear the father or the husband make any really strong, passionate arguments against abortion, or try to show that this is a very serious thing. And to have Abby Johnson, in the case of the father, his daughter, working for Planned Parenthood, I felt he should have been more forceful and more prophetic, you might say. And even the husband, you do have to give him credit. He didn't, bail or divorce Abby, even through all of this Planned Parenthood episode in her life. But you also want to say, well, why weren't you there being more forceful and showing her that this was very, very, very serious and a gross violation of not only natural law, but God's moral law as revealed in the Bible. So I didn't get a sense that the movie presented, I don't think it presented an accurate picture of manhood, biblical Christian manhood, because in older days, men simply would not have stood by passively and allowed the mother of their child to kill their child. It's just not something that men would have done. Today, through all of the decades of feminist ideology, men are taught. They're trained like little puppy dogs. They're poodles. They're trained by the feminist movement to be passive in anything connected with, quote, women's reproductive health. And so under the guise of reproductive health or health care or all this women's issue, men are told to hands off. You don't have a voice. You don't have a say. In fact, that's exactly what a lot of the pro-abortion rhetoric is today. It's basically telling men, you don't even have input here. This is nothing that concerns you. This is all about the woman and her body. So hands off, get out of here. You get no input. If the woman wants to see a doctor and consult with a doctor, that's the only male input that is tolerated. But as far as her husband wanting to have a say in the life of that unborn baby, as far as the boyfriend, forget it. They're non-issues. They have no voice. They get no say in the matter. And this is a gross violation of not only natural law, but biblical law. So I wish that the movie had addressed this problem of the passive male, because it is a problem and it does tie into abortion, and maybe we'll make another video about that. But one of the reasons why we have abortion in our country today, one of the reasons why millions of babies are being killed every year, not only in the U.S. but across the Western nations, is the passive male. They're not standing up for life. They're letting lies win in the cultural war, and they're just going along with it and saying, okay, well, I don't want to get into an argument. I wouldn't want to confront anyone, so I'm just going to let this happen. It's a lot easier that way. Well, men don't do what is always the easiest thing. We're called by God to be warriors for the truth, and when there is a grave injustice happening in society, we have to be willing to suffer and fight against that grave injustice. So that is something that maybe there could be another movie produced about the male role in society during some kind of great injustice, as abortion is, and how we need to be active in the defense of human life. And it's the same way with the pro-life movement. I think one of the errors would be to allow the pro-life movement to basically market themselves or position themselves in public relations as primarily a woman's movement. That is not the case. I know it's a lot better or easier to try to talk to feminists today. If you're a woman against abortion rather than a man against abortion, and that might be better for public relations, advertising, and marketing for women to be seen on the forefront of the pro-life movement. But really, it's men's responsibility as leaders in the home, leaders in the church, leaders in society, to actually stand up for the innocent in society, stand up for the unborn. And so we need to take an active role, not a passive role. We need to lead and not just follow. Men need to step up and be the defenders of the defenseless, and not just allow pro-life women to try to lead and try to be that strong voice. Because, yes, they do have a strong voice. Women do have a strong voice in this issue, but men have to be at least equally or more so forthright in defending human life. It's their duty. It's the duty of men to defend and protect innocent human life. More so even than women. It's the duty of men in the family to protect their family members. It's the duty of men to protect their children, even unborn. It's the duty of men to step forward and protect any part of society that is innocent and vulnerable to violence. And we need to begin to emphasize that again and remind men of their duties. Now, Abby began to grow doubts about the honesty and the integrity of Planned Parenthood. She began to see that they were pushing abortion more and more and more. That's not what she signed up for. And finally, she had this confrontation with a higher-up in Planned Parenthood, and she realized she needed to leave. And ironically enough, it was one of the pro-life counselors outside of her abortion clinic, this young couple, that really befriended her and actually helped her, give her the courage enough to actually step out of the abortion industry, and help pray with her and helped actually find her another job to take the place of the Planned Parenthood position she had held for many years. So this pro-life counseling couple helped her, and it's a great testimony that pro-life Christians are not just these people shouting at women as they're going into the abortion clinic. It's not just that. It's not even primarily that. The pro-life movement is composed of, I would imagine, and from experience I can say that it's composed of mostly very sincere and honest Christian people who love these women and who really want to see the best for them and want to save the babies and save the mothers, and so are willing to pretty much do whatever it takes to help either the women have their baby, or help them put the baby up for adoption, or help them take care of the baby, or help get them set up in an apartment, or help them financially. There's all kinds of options that the pro-life Christian people are willing to do to assist the women. Even the workers, even the abortion workers, who, if an abortion worker, employee, leaves Planned Parenthood, oftentimes they're blacklisted by Planned Parenthood. They're given bad references for future work opportunities. They're retaliated against, just like Abby Johnson. Abby Johnson faced retaliation by Planned Parenthood. They sued her in a court of law. They had all these ridiculous charges against her, and they were all thrown out. So Abby Johnson, she was able to leave Planned Parenthood, but they didn't want her to leave, and they were angry and spiteful and vengeful against her. And that's what happens a lot of times when an abortion worker wants to leave. They're threatened, they're harassed, they're bullied by Planned Parenthood because Planned Parenthood doesn't want them to expose any of their lies and deceptions. The movie ends basically with a scene where there's a fence, like a chain link fence, and then women who have had abortions placed a rose in that fence and said a few words, took a moment of reflection and said a few words to their unborn baby, saying they're sorry, they apologize for going in for an abortion, for getting an abortion. And Abby Johnson did that too. She placed a couple roses, 2 roses, because she had 2 abortions in the past. She placed those roses on the fence, and you could see this whole big section of the fence full of roses because women had placed them there, and for all the unborn babies. And Abby said to her babies, "I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I know I'll see you one day in heaven. But until then, I want to let you know I'm sorry for what I did to you. It was wrong of me, and I sinned against you, and I sinned against God." And it was a very powerful scene. And even the Mel McGinnis, the Reverend, the pastor that I talked with via Skype, he was greatly moved by that scene as well. So if you haven't seen the movie, definitely check it out. There are scenes in this movie that will definitely move you. It will open your eyes. It will educate you. It will motivate you to have more conviction that this terrible evil of abortion must end, and we must help it end by furthering its end along any way we can. Well, I hope that's helped you, and we'll see you back next week on another episode of Christ and Culture. God bless.